Thank you. We've got one more session to cover, and it's insights on the first ICOM virtual data science hackathon, and that happened back in April. So we've got a few dear colleagues here to talk to us about the insights revealed from this first ever virtual hackathon in April. And just to headline this, the second phase will be taking place in late October. So with that, I'll turn it over to Janaka, Jonathan, and Juan. I see them all here, so I don't know who's kicking off, but glad you're all here, and happy to hear the stories of how it went and the insights that you gleaned from this first virtual ICOM data science hackathon.
Thank you. I think Janaka, I think you're up first, right?
Yes, I think so.
The fearless leader. Thanks, Janaka. Thanks. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. It's good to be back here with you at ICOM. So I just wanted to set the stage a little bit about the hackathon that we did. I lead data strategy for EMEA at Johnson & Johnson. And along with Martin Krippner, we decided to look at different ways of understanding how to build audiences and be more targeted with our brand Nicorette. And it's a complicated brand. Because the path to quitting smoking is a complex one, we wanted to bring in some fresh thinking around how we could understand what these behaviors are, and on a human level, also to understand how we could reach the right groups of people and reduce our media wastage. And obviously, the messaging is a really important part of that convince process that this is, a tool in order to aid you to quit smoking. So the ICOM hackathon provided this method for us, and we got together as an advisory group, a larger group, to try and figure out how to connect all of the desires of the brand and also into a hackathon format. And ultimately, what we did was we sort of married the behavioral aspect with the data science aspect, and had sort of a behavioral hypothesis led, what is it that will convince somebody to quit smoking? And the teams would come up with a behavioral hypothesis on that basis, and we would build an accompanying audience, and that accompanying audience would also have the message very much connected to that hypothesis. So that was our phase one. And in phase two, we're going to actually use those audiences that were created in the hackathon from the 3 winners out of the 12 that participated. And we're going to actually activate media against it. So we're going to put money behind it and see how these audiences and the hypothesis actually behaved. So just a very quick note on learnings. Already we're within Johnson & Johnson, we're seeing that the method itself is very interesting and appealing to other ways, other brands, and and how we can bring this ultimately into our ways of working, how it can improve things for us as an organization. So that's the broad strokes of the hackathon that we just did.
Thanks for that. I think I'm next up. We'll let the winner go last, which is an unusual way of doing it, but we'll do it that way this time. So, for me, being an applied behavioral scientist, so the fact that I apply insights from behavioral science, and I work for Kinesso, which is IPG's data and tech company, is I do this on a daily basis, and not that it's easy, but when you do it, the results are very dramatic. We've seen, incremental response rates in the sort of double-digit range, and sort of really changing or making marketing really efficient by being more effective using behavioral science and data. So you need the data part, the what part, as I would call it, but you also need the why. So what's the human insight behind why that is actually happening? If you marry those two together, that's kind of when the magic happens. So the hackathon for me was really interesting because, as a hackathon should be, is like, how are people doing this in different ways? Innovation is, how do we solve an existing problem in a different and new way? So it was very interesting to see how each team approached it, whether they started with data, the what part, and then tried to translate the why from behavioral science, or they did it in the reverse. Either way is fine. They're just different approaches. And I think we had about 12 teams, and everyone seemed to approach it and come up with different things, which to me is fascinating and also pretty inspirational. It was hard as a category lead from a behavioral science perspective not to sort of lead or bias the teams and sort of create some inspiration versus saying, this is the insight you should follow. Yeah, I think it worked really well. And it was really fascinating to see the different approaches and the different outcomes. It was very hard to pick winners because they all came up with original ideas, which is the whole point. So over to the winner. What did you do? What did you discover?
Hey, thanks, John. You hear me well?
Yeah.
So Juan Tello, I work for Visa, and I was was a participant along with my team in this hackathon. And even though we were the winners, I think a lot of the teams there were actually delivering some solid solutions. So it was I think a tight competition. For me personally, it was the first time I participated in an external sponsored hackathon. So it was a novel experience. I had been involved in some more internally driven hackathons to actually drive innovation and even drive recruitment. I can talk about that, maybe in the breakout session if somebody's interested. But I thought this one in particular was quite interesting, quite unique in that not only was marrying the data science and behavioral science aspects, but also there was even a requirement to come up with a creative execution. So really different from your typical more pure data hackathons, like a Kaggle challenge, for example. So for this one, it really meant that we had to approach it with a multifunctional mentality, applying different capabilities, different skills to the different deliverables and outcomes, right? And I was lucky to be in the company of a very talented group of data scientists from Visa. And we took a bit of a divide and conquer approach. But importantly, this happened more organically. So as we were getting more familiarized with the data sets, with a problem statement, with some of the hypotheses, then the different members in the team were gravitating towards, more towards one data set or the other. Maybe some were exploring through different methods. So that those roles and those responsibilities kind of persisted throughout the 34-hour hackathon. The other thing I want to say that even, this was a high pressure event, obviously, and there was a lot of work done throughout those 34 hours, but I think the preparation going into the hackathon was crucial, I think, and part of the success of our team. And that meant, for instance, getting to know the team. I've never worked with this team before at Visa, so I had to set up some meetings, set up some like a virtual room. Also, we're all working from home, so kind of getting to know the team, getting some interaction going, discussing some of the initial inputs that we were getting from the event organizers, aligning on the tech stack. We couldn't use for confidentiality reasons and privacy reasons, we could not use our own Visa technology, right? To do this, it was more of a bring your own. So we had to align on that. What are we going to be using? And also defining, I think what was really helpful too was to define a set of hypotheses upfront. So instead of like boiling the ocean and try to explore all the data sets, come up with some, bring up some hypothesis into the analysis upfront, even before looking at the data, right? And that really helped us to really focus and narrow it down. So that I would say were some of the success factors that played a role in our team, at least.
Yeah, with hindsight, is there anything that stands out that you would have done differently?
I think I would have probably asked for a bit more diversity in the team. Should I have maybe known a little bit better or understood a little bit better what was the outcome. I think for the creative piece, we did our best, right? But nobody there was a copywriter and I know that was not maybe the bar was not as high there, but it would have been interesting to bring in somebody from marketing, for example, into the challenge as well, to make it even more, to have a broader skill set available.
Yeah. Janaka, what about you? Would you done anything different from the J&J side with the hindsight? Oh, you're on mute, mate.
Hello. It's been an absolutely fascinating process, and I think it's a process of learning as you go along, because we've just had 2 meetings with the other 2 winners, Wonderman and Bond Brand, and we're going to meet with Juan tomorrow, and so even that is honing in the actual, because ultimately we're going to activate this data, and we've got to make sure that the campaign's successful, because there's significant money going behind this, so we need to lock down everything along the way. So I would say that the process has been learn as you go, and remarkably we're doing pretty well in terms of the outputs. I think maybe this is a note for Andreas. I think it would have been helpful to have a little bit longer for the presentations. I think Juan might agree with me here. The presentations were 10 minutes, and I know the reason for that was simply because we'd spent so many hours in the preparation phases, the execution phases, and everything else. So I think everybody's pretty exhausted. But there was a lot of content to deliver in 10 minutes and the 5-minute question period. So now we've had these additional meetings to hone in and make sure that that the ideas of the hypothesis are truly married to the data sets, and the messaging is truly connected to both of those, because ultimately, when we take those audiences, push them into the buying platforms, lose some of them because of match rates, we've got to be sure that the messaging and all of those pieces, the audience sizing is correct, so that we can actually spend money against it, and then the measurement framework needs to be sorted out. So I guess there's one part is like the future leaning stuff that we're still learning, and then that little minor thing would have maybe helped us make stronger decisions, I think.
Yeah. And then you mentioned other groups or other brands are interested. Is anything you can share in what they're, why are they interested? Is it just a different approach, or was there any other reasons? Yeah,
so the other groups are interested because, we try and answer questions in specific ways, like we would engage with a consulting company. We would look to other sort of resources like this to answer questions, but this method is multi-pronged, right? Because if you have a rounded sort of problem statement, and you get 12 really high level organizations to come and really focus in on winning this prize, and like in that compressed environment, I think that leads to sort of the diamond coming out of the other end of it, that pressure. I think that's very compelling. And also I think even with the Nicorette team, it's a product that's been around for a long time, in essence, I think a lot of the ideas had been thought of by the people running the brand, but not in this sort of end-to-end way, not with sort of the precision, not with the audiences, so it wasn't all there. So that was very compelling too. So once other groups see this, then it also means that they think about, well, what kind of problem statements can we come up with that we need to solve, that could be solved by multiple groups of people.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds really good, especially being a behavioral scientist myself. Hopefully that will keep me employed for a while. Going back to the winner chicken dinner for a second. You got 40 seconds. Anything else you want to add that, maybe around your approach or anything?
Yeah, I think one more thing that I think played a role was understanding that the problem statement, again, upfront. And that also not only meant, understanding what was the expected deliverable in terms of the audience, reachability and sizing, but also I think it was interesting to know, and at some point that was revealed, that the judging panel was very diverse. So it was not only like data scientists, but you also had marketing and media agencies in there. So that also shaped how we approach our presentation. And again, it was very limited to just strictly 10 minutes. So we didn't spend too much time on methodology, showing the methodology. I mean, we did show a little bit, but I saw other groups that actually spend a lot of time there, and that might have maybe played against them at the end. But we try to focus more on the outcome, on the audiences, how were these defined, and then what the creative could look like. So understanding that up front, if the judges would have been more of purely data scientists, then our approach would have been a bit different for sure.
Yeah. Well, I know we ran out of time, but would love people to join us in the breakout session if they want to ask anything more in depth.